Welcome to another episode of Prepper Talk Radio. We are live on YouTube and Facebook. Super excited to come and share some ideas with you today about hygiene and the importance of hygiene. But before we get into that, I'd like to just remind you to go to preppertalkradio.com and check out our resources that are there. Join our mailing list, be a part of our community on our Facebook page as well. We also want to actually invite you to a special event we're going to be hosting on the 14th of September at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. It's going to be, we're going to share with you, we've talked a little bit about how we're switching some of the things that we're spending to a Patriot-owned, American-made, American manufacturing companies and products and services. And we're tired of giving our money to woke companies that hate our guts and that are trying to just destroy the American values that are out there. So the owner of this company, I'm telling you, he was actually listed as the 8th most dangerous conservative to the according to the Obama administration. And so I was like, yes, that's awesome.
I'm joining up on that.
Yeah,
I'm trying to make a list still.
Yeah, right. This is a fantastic opportunity to see what we're doing. We understand there's a lot of great companies out there, but we wanted to share with you what we're doing and hope that it might be a benefit to you as well. So join us at on that event. To register for the event, you have to go to preppertalkproject.com and you register for the event. It's September 14th, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. We're going to share with you some of the things that we're doing, and I think that you'll really be impressed. So preppertalkproject.com. All right, without further ado, let's jump into the topic today. It is hygiene. And, I don't know what the statistics are exactly, but everything I've heard is the number one, or right there at the top, most dangerous scenario in a SHTF or in a grid down is not having proper hygiene and first aid, and just really not understanding how to get rid of your waste, especially human waste. So we're going to talk about that today in today's show. So hopefully you're prepared, and hopefully this won't be too crappy of a show.
You started out bad there, Paris.
Oh, poop. Here we go. No, I wanted to talk about this today because there's a lot of focus on, okay, we've got the food, we got to get the water, we got to get the guns, but it's like, where are you going to go number one and number two when the toilets aren't working?
Everybody poops.
Everybody poops until you don't, and then you don't need them anymore.
Yeah, but if you're eating MREs, you won't be pooping for a while.
Well, it depends. Like the standard
depends.
MREs, punny. They won't plug you up as bad as those SOS rations, right? Everyone's like, put those in my emergency kits.
The thing with the SOS rations is they're in your bag and you're walking, you're moving, so it shouldn't be as bad as if you're sitting around in your bug out, right?
You need to hydrate like crazy when you're eating those. I've done it. I've lived off of them for 3 days. I was plugged up. I poop you not. And I not pooped. It was lame because after about 2 days after, so I was regular until the second day, and then for 2 days I was still eating them, and then it took another 2 days before I started passing everything again.
Well, we appreciate your sacrifice for your story.
So, but I had to know for myself, like, what do these do to me? And yeah, it plugged me up. But here's the bigger issue is this, is like everything in life, as we know it, is fragile. And the number one thing that people aren't prepping for is their hygiene. And a lot of people think, oh, my hygiene, I got my toothbrush and my toothpaste in my 96-hour kit. And, well, I got some wet wipes. Okay. Long term, what is your solution?
Well, part of that hygiene solution, right, is part of your preps. You should already be ready for, like, number one, shelter, number two, water, right? Water is the key to proper sanitation. There are a lot of little tips and tricks and things you can use in the short term, but really in the long term, you got to have water. So that should be,
and the ability to boil it.
Speaking of water, we had a guy email us a question about what kind of water he should be storing. And I got a chance to reply. And I said, look, you got to have potable water you're going to drink that's going to be for drinking. And then you can store gray water, and gray water can be used for example, backfilling a toilet so that you can flush it when the sewage system is not working, or for planting, or for washing dishes and things of that nature. So there's definitely, you want to have a ton of storage for drinking, but then you also want to have some gray water that you're just using for that stuff. You can
But remember, your toilets are going to back up. If the whole city's still using the toilets, they're going to back up very quickly. And whoever lives at the lowest point on that line, they need to relocate.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's going to become a major bacterial problem.
A septic tank.
Yeah.
The basement
and that's the
will
thing
be a
is
septic
like
tank.
you become the septic tank. So I live up on a hill. Advantageous for me for a little while, but not long term. Right? So you've got to have an alternative. Like we talked about the poop buckets a couple episodes ago, I think, where you can go buy them. Oh yeah, we did an interview and
North Star Survival's
North Star Survival pointed out. Like I'm like, dude, easier solution. Go grab a bucket, go to the dollar store, get a pool noodle for $1, cut it to length, use that as your seat, put a bag over that and into the bucket, and that's where you do your duty in case of an emergency. It's short term, right? But then if you need to dig a latrine, know how and where to dig a latrine. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm gonna put my outhouse close to my house. There's a reason why great grandma and great grandpa did not do that. They didn't put it close to the house. My grandma used to tell me stories about their outhouse all the time. Do you guys have any living relatives that ever or recently passed relatives that had outhouses?
Nope.
Not that I know of.
Oh, the outhouse was 100 feet away from the house. And they lived up in Rigby, Idaho. So winters were cold.
Oh, yeah.
And nights were cold. Guess where the toilet seat was?
In the house.
In the
Take
house.
it out with you.
You take it out with you, you wipe it down, and then you bring it back. So there's more to just pooping in a hole out there. You've got sanitation things you got to work on.
You can actually get at Walmart, you can get a seat, a toilet. Like I totally agree with what Scott said about getting a pool noodle. But if you want to get a little fancier, a little more comfort level, Walmart sells those seat lids for really cheap that you can actually put onto a 5-gallon thing that you can get at Lowe's or any hardware store. You really can get those 5-gallon buckets. And then you put a bag in there and put the seat on top of it. But they also have a tripod with it's a seat, and for so you can dig a hole. It's possible. I mean, they did it for hundreds of years until they figured out, hey, you know what? If we had a stool with a hole in the seat, we could actually have a comfortable sitting arrangement. It's not that comfortable to squat down and hope you miss your clothes and your feet and your heels. So if you have a tripod, you can buy those at Walmart too. I think they're like $15 or $20. I don't know, but those are. I have a couple different ways to take care of have my family be able to take care of it, and have a shovel that you can dig deep enough to be able to do it. How deep? Do you guys know how deep they should dig?
I believe it's 3 feet.
Yeah, they should be at least 3 feet. The other thing is you need to be away from all water sources that you're going to be using for water to drink. Especially, you need to be downhill of the water, not uphill of the water. Whited Outdoors, he's got a luggable loo, right? Those are great too. Other good things, get a composting toilet as your backup. And those are fantastic. I stayed in a Airbnb that had one of those, and it was great because it was easy to use. They left the notes on there. They're like, okay, if it's this, then you got to do this, and if it's number 1, you got to do this. If it's number 2, you got to do this. And it had separate chambers that it'd go down into, and depending on if it was 1 or 2, and there was no smell, and it was easy to maintain. And then they had a secondary pit that they pour it into, depending on, or pour, pan 1 into or pan 2 into. But it lasted us for the whole time we were there, and it wasn't even remotely filled. Like it was like the 3rd filled by the time we left. So, and it didn't stink. So there's other ways to do this, but like you've got to be able to do that, but you've also got to be able to keep things clean. And so if you don't have a huge surplus of cleaning supplies, and keep in mind those will go bad, bleach goes bad, it expires. Unlike your medicines that can last 18 years, your bleach can last 18 months. And it starts degrading really, really rapidly. So like things like vinegar, though, what's the life cycle on vinegar?
It can be a couple of years.
Yeah, it's about 2 years.
Yeah.
Before it starts going, like it'll start fermenting, depending on what you have with it. Because there's like, you can have straight distilled vinegar, which is going to last you the longest, or you can have vinegar with other stuff in it. You know, throw some citrus in there and stuff like that. So it'll start fermenting. You'll have other problems. Andrew, you sneaky devil. He jumped in there. I was about to say this. The next thing that I like is powdered pool shock. We've got bottles and bottles of this. And is that what you just shared?
Yeah, this is what I have. And the key, there's lots of different kinds of pool shock in there, but the key is to get the right kind, which is the calcium hypochlorite. You don't want the sodium hypochlorite, but the calcium hypochlorite. And it also depends on the concentration. This is 68%. So it needs to be pretty high concentration of calcium hypochlorite. Some will have less, some will have more. But then there's lots of instructions out there. We're not going to share those because there's some liability that way. But you can find instructions how to use this online. But you also have to take into account the concentration of the calcium hypochlorite.
What's that used for again?
A pool shock. So you would use this whole pouch for like 10,000 gallons or something like that pool to actually... if you know anything about hot tubs or swimming pools, once your pool gets overly contaminated, too much bacteria in it, it kind of goes crazy. It goes wild. It's hard to manage, right? Just with your standard chlorine or bromine, whatever you're using in your pool. Mm-hmm. A shock is for a quick treatment to try and catch up.
So drinkable, makes it potable again.
Well, it makes it so you can swim in it and not be ingesting bacteria. Right?
Yeah, it sanitizes the water.
Yeah.
Right.
So you can use the pool shock, like obviously you guys know, in very small portions. This will treat upwards of 10,000 gallons for drinking water in the way that you use this to create your own bleach, then you use that bleach to purify water. That's not my preferred method, is to drink water that has bleach in it. But then, I put it through the Berkey and take the bleach out of it. Or,
see, I look at it
different ways to do it that way.
My pool shock is not for me to treat water. My pool shock is a cleaning supply to help us keep our hygiene safe, right? Because you still need it. Like, we're going to be processing more foods on our own. We're going to be letting the rabbits loose and let those start making more and more babies, food down the line. But we're going to be processing our own game, right? We're going to be processing chickens more. We're going to be processing rabbits more, and so we need to be able to sanitize those areas and keep them super clean, so we're not creating a bacterial problem, right? And so that's, for me, that's why I have pool shock.
And you can, of course, use vinegar for that as well. Vinegar, salt, electrolyzed solution.
And so those things are great resources to have on hand, because 10,000 gallons, you can set it up to help the whole neighborhood.
Yeah, and this is like a few bucks, like $4 or $5 for, I've had this for a while. It's probably more now, but it's a great prep. To even just have one of those, it goes a long ways.
100% agree.
Yep, that's awesome. I think another thing that's important to have is, we've been talking about poo and water and things of that nature, but then, sometimes the ladies, there's some really cool products for the ladies. One of them I hear is called the Go Girl, and it's a funnel that's specifically designed for a woman to be able to go to urinate standing up. And that can be something that can be really important for your wives and your daughters, so that they can have they can be a little more discreet as they're taking care of business on that end. They don't have to be in a situation where they might be compromised. So it could be way easier for them. Go Girl. If you go to our Amazon store, I think there's a link there on our Amazon store to pick some of these up.
It's funny. I actually just saw a commercial for that.
Did you really?
It was hilariously. It was so bad. It was.
There's no shame nowadays.
Like, what is this? And they were handing it around, and they're like, what? And they're like putting it on their mouth, and like, what is this? And I'm just like, I know what it is, so I'm going, oh no. And then the girl walks in, they're like, hey, we just saw, what is this? And she's like, oh, that's so I can go potty. And they're like, what? She's like, yeah, I can pee standing up. It's great. I use it whenever, like, on road trips and there's no gas stations nearby. And they're like, what? And she's like, well, I haven't used it yet, but it's my cousin's and she uses it all the time. And they're like, we had it on our mouths. We were trying to,
oh, that's
right?
Gross.
Hygiene, like, make sure everyone in your group knows what you have and how to use it, right?
And then another thing for the ladies is that, I don't know if you guys have these, but there's menstrual cups that that they can use that are washable and reusable. And then there's there's other things like pads that you can get that are washable as well. So it's not just there's so much to think about. When I was thinking about hygiene at first, I was like, oh yeah, that's fine. I was, from a guy's perspective, I'm like, I just, need this to stand up. I even bought the Coleman toilet paper, so I have some of that in my bag. But then I was like, and then my wife was like, well, what about us? What if we need to go to the bathroom? I'm like, let's see what's out there. So that's when I found the Go Girl, and that's when I found the menstrual cups and some of this other stuff. So a lot of us as preppers, and there's a lot of women out there that are preppers too. So if you have something that's that you've invented or that you've done as a lady to be able to have some of these things, let us know, because we'd be happy to share it or promote it, or even have a discussion about it. So it's important. That's I think one of the bigger killer after food and maybe water. I think the number one killer of people who don't in a long-term survival situation is people who don't take care of their hygiene, because they get infected and they don't do well with that.
I think another aspect of that is we are so spoiled nowadays. Some people I know take a shower in the morning, they take a shower in the evening, right? That's just too much. I mean, that's overkill. You're not going to be able to do that in an SHTF situation where you're limited water, your water shut off, or you have only what you've stored, right? So I think it's a good idea to practice now. How long can you go without a shower? Maybe that's not, maybe you're practicing that camping, right, on a weekend or holiday or something, right? But I think it's important to put these things into practice now and try to ration water, try to use minimal, and see how much water it takes for you to wash dishes or to do this task or that task, and measure that, so you know how much you're going to need to store, or how long your water storage is going to get you through, how long it's going to get you through. And so I think that's an important part of prepping, and not just storing, but learning how to use it.
Well, it also goes into like keeping your wounds clean, how to keep your wounds clean. That's when we talk about how sanitation is one of the number one killers, it's because of things like that, like keeping a wound clean and maintained. If you can't boil water, and if you can't have, for example, Mike pointed out Steramine. Thank you, Utah Mike. Like Steramine is fantastic because it comes in tablets. It's dry. They come, I think, 100 per bottle or whatever. But we used to use those when I was working in a commercial kitchen. We used to use those as the third step in cleaning the food, or the plates, not the food. I would throw the steak in there. No, we would super hot, wash everything, and then we throw it through a rinse, and then we put it in the Steramine, and let it sit in the Steramine for a little while, so it completely sanitizes all the plates and all the forks and spoons and everything.
Is that like Barbasol?
I don't know. What's Barbasol? Like the shaving cream?
The combs. Used to have combs in the Barbasol, right? Remember, you go as a kid, you go get your haircut, you have this thing of blue liquid, you got the combs in there, they pull it at the Barbasol. Anyway, that just came to my mind. I'll shut up.
Well, now I'm thinking of getting your hand stuck in a latrine with a blue liquid. Have you seen? There's a movie that they joke about it. This guy had a blue hand.
Yeah, I forget what it's called. I've got it up here.
Yeah. Oh,
I have to remember.
Abyss. It's an abyss.
The abyss.
And they had a survival scenario. Their whole thing was survival scenario. The whole world's going into panic above, and they're on this deep oil rig in the middle of the ocean, right on the edge of the abyss, dealing with aliens.
Good show.
They didn't know that the aliens were down underwater.
Good show. So yeah, you can get, like Mike says, you can get bleach tablets. You can get, just like from where you get your spa or your pool supplies, bleach tablets or bromine and chlorine tablets, which will keep obviously a lot longer than liquid bleach. Has a short shelf life. It loses its potency, and then you don't know how to mix it properly, and then you end up getting sick.
Yeah, and I'd keep a lot of antibiotic, triple antibiotic, like the not the cream, but the gel
ointment.
Yeah, just try to store up on that as part of your preps as well. Keep a good solid storage of that, because that's going to be good for you.
Yeah, and obviously one thing we haven't mentioned is just having a porta potty. They're inexpensive, and they're very convenient, especially for a short-term emergency. Pull that in the house if need be. It's easy, real super easy to use.
Slide it into the garage, not into the house, or put it on the back porch.
Put it in the bathroom.
Don't bring
in
it in
the
the
house.
Yeah, you don't want to stinking things up. Although I went on a camping trip recently, as I've shared before, and I was nervous because one of the reasons why they didn't have a built bathroom close by, and that's something that you should practice as well. Like go camping where there's no real bathrooms that you can utilize. A lot of these campsites are kind of just modern, facilities and stuff like that, so you get to cheat a little bit. But when you have a campsite where there's no facilities, you got to be creative about what you're going to do. And so I built a latrine, if you will, and it was a 5-gallon bucket with a seat, and then I had a bag inside of it so that it captured the stuff. And then what we would do is, in order to kind of trap the smell, we put kitty litter in there, and that trapped the smell really well. And that's again another short-term option, because you'll run out of kitty litter at some point if you're in a long-term scenario. But at least for the short term, have a couple boxes of kitty litter on hand, and that will help with the smell and keep that trapped and contained.
That's a great point. Of course, you can use sawdust. You can use ash from your cooked fires.
Nice.
There's quite a few different things. You can just use layers of dirt, right? Layers of sand.
Yeah. So I created my own version. The same thing that Paris did. Basically, we called it the Scotty Potty. It's how I got my wife to be able to go camping with me. She's like, "Was there a bathroom?" And I'm like, "I'll make a bathroom. We'll make this work." But you can get, there's gels, like you can get eco gels, you can get Defuriate. I'm probably saying it wrong. But basically portable urinals and stuff like that. There's so many different things, and you can do. The easiest thing is just a layer of dirt, because then you're not packing in sawdust, right? That's why I love the dig a hole latrine, because then you have a shovel next to it, and you have a little pile of dirt. All the dirt that you use to dig out the hole can now go in and cover each time someone goes. Covered up.
So maybe dig at 4 feet instead. That way you have a couple feet there to.
That's why they say at least 3 feet, and then you stop using it when it hits about 2 feet.
Okay. And then you dig another hole somewhere else.
Yeah. Great idea for preppers. Make sure you got good post hole diggers.
Ooh.
It doesn't need to be a big, huge gaping pit.
That's true.
Just get some post hole diggers, and you're going to save yourself some time.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Or if you've still got power, you can plug in one of those augers, or get one of those ice cutters. Augers for that, and run it on gas. There you go. You could go around drilling latrines for your neighborhood with one of those and charging it. Like that's a money maker in a short-term apocalyptic scenario, right? You can go around and be like, I'll dig your first
a bunch of holes,
but you got to give me five of those cans of ravioli.
Yeah.
Right? Or whatever. That's like perfect start to barter and trade right there.
That's your SHTF side hustle.
Right? It's like, oh, you got extra chickens? Oh, you got some eggs? Well, okay, I'll come dig you a new latrine. I'll save you 3 hours of time. Put in a male and female hole for you. There's the women's hole over there. There's the men's hole over there, separated with bushes. There's so many different things you could do. Like, I think what the problem is everyone's so limited to like, oh, I have to have a bathroom and I have to have a stand-in, home shower. Like, dude, you're gonna get to the point where you're not even showering anymore. You're just doing sponge baths because you're trying to conserve water.
Yeah, I guess that's really where I was going with my comment. Just saying we're way too spoiled nowadays. You can really get away with a lot less in everything we do. A lot less energy, a lot less sanitation, right? I mean, you got to wash your hands. You got to have that provision for washing your hands. And I think part of that is using some of this calcium hydroxide, hypochlorite, calcium hypochlorite, creating a sanitation solution that you can just rinse your hands off in, after using the restroom, after doing whatever to keep, try to keep your hands sanitized and cleaned, rather than using a lot of water.
What do you do, Mike? What if you quit showering? Do you do something else?
You read Mike's comments. Is that what you're doing?
There you go. You can get to Mike. I quit showering last spring. If that's true, I'm impressed, because we just hung out like a couple months ago, and you smelled just fine. Like I don't even.
That's funny, dude.
I don't even know what to say right now. That's amazing.
I don't even want to talk about my habits, but thank you, Mike.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, it's like when you're camping, like you let things slide, right? But it's funny because like certain things you won't let slide. Like if I get cut when I'm camping, dude, I work so hard to keep that thing clean. But it's funny because like if I get a cut while I'm working, I don't work as hard to keep it clean.
Right.
because I know I have stuff to help keep it clean. I can go and take care of it, but I'm like, man, I got to fix that. I got to change that mindset, because like I'll let like an open wound slide a little bit longer while I'm working, because I'm like, I just got to get other stuff done, and I don't prioritize it. And that, I think, is where a lot of people will make that mistake in SHTF. They'll forget, I can't just go get the sterilized, or our sterilization solutions are limited, so I can't just risk it, because a little paper cut could kill you.
If it gets infected, yeah.
Yeah. Like, you guys watch the show Alone at all?
I haven't.
Not for a long time.
Okay, so this season there's a guy, he was doing something, and a piece of wood snapped off in his arm. And so for like weeks he's like squeezing out the pus and squeezing out the pus. And it's golf ball sized. And he's squeezing out the pus. I'm like, dude, it's infected. And he's like, I'm going to have to lance this or something. And then one morning he was like feeling it, and he found there's something in it. And he like twisted it around until the wood popped out. And he had this splinter about almost an inch long that was wedged in there. Once he got that out and he squoze out the pus and then cleaned it up again, it stopped growing. It stopped creating new pus. Like, the body's just trying to protect itself against whatever that was, that debris. And man, if you can't clean that up and you're up the river, like, dude, that could have gotten really bad really fast.
Well, another important, I think, aspect of SHTF is just general house cleaning, right? That's something I do a lot of at our house. So it's on my mind is, okay, how would I do this without power, without running water, and still keep things clean to keep everybody else, healthy, sanitizing countertops and just mopping and cleaning floors and doorknobs and so forth, because obviously if you don't have running water, you're going to have more diseases going around. So having a plan to have enough cleaners on hand, and we like to use non-chemical cleaners, so that you really don't have to wipe that residue off and use a lot more water. Using chemicals, you have to rinse it. At least I do. I rinse it a lot more to get the chemicals off there. Sanitize it, then rinse it. But yeah, practice your preps, exactly. And so using some more organic cleaners, like I mentioned, I use this vinegar salt water solution that's electrolyzed, and that's okay if it sits on the surface. Wipe it down with minimal water; it can sit there rather than having to then rinse it off. So there are a lot of different ways you can go about cleaning by using very minimal water and still staying sanitary.
Yeah.
Isn't baking soda a good cleaning agent as well?
I think for abrading surfaces,
it's an abrasion.
Yeah. For keeping things, I don't think it does actually anything for
disinfecting
for disinfecting, but it is good for abrading.
I've heard it's good for like alternate toothpaste or shampoo even.
Yeah. So my mom actually uses a homemade baking soda combination of stuff, toothpaste, and she has great results. I haven't jumped into it yet, but always looking at other opportunities and options. Like we've got stacks and stacks of toothpaste, right, and different types of cleaners. But we also have, which goes back to the 14th when we do this PrepperTalkProject.com. If you haven't registered for that, go register for that. But we use products there where you use they don't store with water. All the cleaning products that we're buying now, they don't store with water in them. We add water later to it, and it's all natural solutions, and that's part of that. And we can go into that day, but it's like we've started using that, and it's like just like what you're using, Shane. It's like it's organic, it's non-toxic. It's like if it sits on there, it sits on there. It's no big deal. If I get some in my mouth, rinse it out. Okay, it's fine. It's not like call poison control. It's like half the stuff that like we're getting put all the ingredients in our food anyways. It's like, if you eat that by itself, call poison control. But it's okay with your SpaghettiOs.
Trisodium phosphate,
right?
In particular in your breakfast cereals. But yeah, Mike's, what are your laundry plans? That's a great question. And that's another thing to practice as well, which nobody wants to. I guarantee. I don't want to practice doing my laundry by hand, but yeah, I've got certain detergents set aside, that are for hand washing that create very minimal suds, so they don't require a lot of rinsing, right? That are more organic, that if there's detergent left on the clothes and I put it on, it's not going to irritate my skin, right? Rather than using a lot of water to rinse, because laundry it just uses a lot of water, and so having that plunger thing, I forget what it's called. You know what I'm talking about, Scott? That it's
I've got a couple
blue,
of those.
blue cone in a bucket, and you can also there are also some really cool hand washing machines you can get to do a few things at a time. But for me, a bucket and water, and then hang it to dry in the sun is really going to be what's going to disinfect your clothes.
Yeah, I have one of those. I have like a round metal tub. I don't know, it's probably 1.5 feet tall. And then I have that plunger agitator thing. And then I have a washboard even that I got for being able to do that kind of, you just flop it on there, right? Rub it back and forth, flop it, twist it, flip it, rub it back and forth, and then you hang it out to dry. Rinse it out really well. I even bought one of those. It's like a hand crank water rinser outer thing. So if your wrists your forearms get tired from rinsing out your clothes, you can run it through that thing and it'll get the water off.
Wrings out the clothes.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we do is we've got borax and naphtha soap, and then we also have a ton of baking soda stored. So for detergent, you can use those. There's recipes online, you can go find them, but that makes a really good detergent, and because everything's stored dry and separate, it lasts longer.
Yeah, borax, exactly. Borax keeps forever, basically.
Yeah, there's no expiration date on it.
It's a mineral that comes out of the ground.
It's a good thing your wife's not watching right now. My wife doesn't let me do the laundry because she enjoys it, and I'm like, I kind of get annoyed sometimes because I'm like, I need this washed today, and so then I go wash it myself, and she's like, you're ruining my cycle. I'm like, but I get in trouble. But hey, if that's the agreement you guys have, that's awesome.
I was going to say, Mike, my wife and daughters are going on vacation by themselves this weekend, and I'm going fishing with the boy.
Taking the boy?
Yeah.
Nice.
So
I think that's one of the best things you can be doing in your prep game is just take these little extended vacations, these little trips to somewhere with less resources, and see how well you fare. Like when you go fishing, you don't have everything right there. You've got to drive a ways to get to it. And so
you got a lake, you just bathe in the lake, right?
Right. But like not everywhere is going to have the same scenario. So you can try different things in different places, different vacation places, like break out the, what was it called? The Go Girls, Go
Girl.
Right. Put a couple of those in the car when you take a road trip. You're not encumbered by bathrooms anymore. Right. Except for number 2. Then you got to do the hover squat, whatever. But like practice different things, do different things, and get used to trying different things so that when it is a necessity to do that, it's not trying to learn it while you're already in a high stress situation.
And another aspect that just came to mind is obviously cleaning up after preparing food, right? That can take a lot of water. If you're doing it like you normally would, putting your food, your dishes in the dishwasher, or you're cleaning them washing them in the sink. Practice that with minimal water, rinsing it off, minimal soap. Use different types of soap, and like you're saying, Scott, is this other place where we're buying some of these more natural organic cleaners. If there's some residue, again, it's not going to be harmful. So I think that takes some thinking, some planning to say, okay, I know how to wash these dishes with, I could, and just kind of brag, I can use a gallon of water to wash all our dishes, both wash and rinse, something like that, or a gallon for rinse and a gallon for wash, so that, or you're using your freeze dried and you're just boiling water and you're throwing the package away. So,
well, what's funny is like right now when we have family get-togethers, the dirtiness of the plate when it gets to the sink is just mind-blowing to me. Mm-hmm. You think you can do that, but in an SHTF scenario, like, first of all, there probably won't be any food left on the plate and they'll probably be licked clean-ish, right? But like, scrape things off into the garbage before they get to the sink so that there's like nothing little on there to clean.
Yeah.
Like, those are the types of things you need to take into consideration across all the different things you're going to have to solve. Not just hygiene, not just washing the dishes, but like learn to use less.
Exactly.
Do you need as big a fire as you think you do? No. right? Like, learn to use less. Let it ration the food that you eat, ration the cleaning supplies.
Yeah.
Learn to ration everything and use less.
Yeah, paper bowls, paper plates and bowls. Yeah, for a short emergency, that's a great option. All you got to do is throw them in the garbage and put them in your fireplace. Right, you can
Right.
burn
At
them up.
least at least intermix it with your other stuff. That way you know, sometimes you're having plates that you can wash and sometimes you're having plates you can burn.
Mhm.
A little kindling for the fire.
Fire starter.
We've got for our emergency use, like if we have to bounce and roll out and travel somewhere, but also like just my grandma had these always camping, the metal plates.
The basically
Coleman,
the can't. Okay, yeah.
the camp plates, right?
Yep.
Well, the cool thing about those is you can sanitize them by just holding them over the fire
Because they're metal. Yeah.
because they're metal. They get hot.
And they
But
get
you can
black.
sanitize them that. And we used to do that, and I'm like, why are we doing this? And she's like, we don't have water where we are, so we need to scrape everything off, wipe it off, and then hold it over the fire.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a good sanitizer. And I was like,
Yeah.
that's kind of weird, but okay. Now it makes sense. Now that I'm an adult, I'm like, oh yeah. But get
Yeah.
creative. Learn
Yeah,
how to use
that's
less.
great.
Or
That's a great point.
make something multi solutions. Like one thing be able to do two things.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, where else do we need to go with this?
Well, this is another thing I have. My wife and I my daughter actually is home from school today, and she has vomited several times, unfortunately. But we have these vomit bags in our preps as well. So this is something I think, you know, there's just so many different things that you don't necessarily think about until it happens. You're like, wait a minute, hey, I gotta have some of that in my preps. You know, if somebody's vomiting, you want to be able to contain that, and you want to be able to get it into a place that's far enough away that it's not going to be a problem, especially if you want to, you know, really ration your water. Because if you got to vomit, you got to clean up all over the floor. Shoot, that's another bunch of water. If you can contain it in a bag, now you just take the bag, tie it off, and you can throw it in your ditch or in your poop hole, you know. And so those are some things to think about as well, is to have a few of those, maybe some vomit bags in your just in case somebody has some nausea. I have a bunch of nausea medicine in my preps as well. I have several bottles of there's actually a really good nausea. If you feel nauseous, it's called BHI, and that's the name of the company, and it's their nausea pills, and they're like tablets that you can dissolve in your mouth if you feel any nausea. And my wife swears by them, and she hates being nauseous, and she's like, dude, give me 2 of those. And she pops them, and within 5 to 10 minutes, usually it's her nausea is gone. And that's a really big, you know, cool. That's really cool because she needs to not be nauseous. Anyway, so those are some ideas too, as well, for vomit and nauseousness that you can help, you know, prepare for that.
Yeah, and like Mike says here, cast iron, man, switch over to your cast iron. That's really become a trend with a lot of high-end kitchens. They're switching their pans and their pots to cast iron because it really is fantastic. It provides a really great flavor once your cast iron seasoned and got lots of years under it. But yeah, you just scrape it out, stick it in the fire, burn it off, and you don't even really have to use any water. And
yeah,
in
just
most
get a
cases,
good just get a good cleaning brush.
Exactly, scrub that thing clean. Absolutely, change the way you're cooking things. Exactly, just to save water.
Well, a lot of the pots and pans that you're buying right now can't cook over a fire anyways.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you'd ruin them really quick.
It'd destroy them. They'd melt, or they'd become toxic because they've got this coating, right? But cast iron, when you have seasoned it correctly, it is non-stick. It's amazing. And it's like I only understood that recently, but I grew up with everyone cooking on cast iron, and I'm like, why are we doing this? This is so difficult to clean. And now I'm understanding, they weren't fully seasoned, except for Norm, my old Scoutmaster Norm. That dude had some really good cast iron, and he seasoned it well, and things just slid right out of his skillet. In the morning, he'd be making a scramble, and he's like, shh, and it just slide right out. I'm like, how come that doesn't work at home?
And you could pass it down to future generations.
Yeah. It lasts.
Yeah. Cast iron lasts forever. You should have at least one of each thing for cast iron: Dutch oven, skillets. Yep. You know, those square, whatever those are, that you can make pancakes or whatever on them.
The
Yeah,
one of the
griddles and such.
griddles,
one of the
yeah.
interesting things, like when we went on a recent trip back east, we were looking at some old areas where just pioneer type heritage stuff, and it was interesting because they'd have a cast iron pot that they had that they could just swing into the fire and they'd cook. But what was interesting is I found out that they would leave it over the fire on kind of a simmer all week long and just keep adding to that pot.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not cleaning the pot every day. They're just adding more food to try to take whatever the good food was on Sunday and make that last. And it starts off as maybe as a roast and turns into a stew, then turns into something else throughout the week.
Salsa.
And then on Saturday, they empty it all the way out, clean it all the way out, and then put something else in it. But they keep it warm so it's not creating a bacterial situation.
Oh, that's cool.
But it was interesting because I'm like, they just make one meal into 7 days worth of food, and they only ate. That's another thing. We eat like 4 or 5 times a day now, and they only ate like 1 or 2 times a day back then. There's no reason we need to be eating as much as we are.
That's the truth.
It's crazy. And the more I'm learning about it,
prepare one meal a day and eat it throughout the entire day.
Yeah, and just
a big old cauldron.
Exactly, a cauldron
like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I guess one last thing I wanted to mention is that's important for me is obviously, as I mentioned, water is probably the most important part about sanitation is having a rainwater collection system of some sort, right? Having some barrels, some way to collect from your downspouts. It obviously doesn't need to be permanent. It'd be something you can rig up last minute, but just have what you need in the way of diverters or downspouts or flexible connections to connect to a barrel in a last minute emergency to collect some extra rainwater for sanitation, for, like you say, for flushing toilets or whatever it might be, instead of drawing from your potable water you've got stored away.
What's funny is this is not the sexiest topic in prepping, right? This isn't the fun one. I don't think this video will get thousands of views in the next 30 days, but this is extremely important, right? If you want to be sexy in SHTF, you need to understand hygiene. Otherwise, you're not going to get touched. Your spouse won't even come near you. Your loved ones will stay away. Hugs will disappear. Handshakes will disappear. You'll be all alone in the apocalypse. So learn hygiene.
Well, if you've learned hygiene, then you'll be the one that's smelling good instead of stinky, right? And you'll be a big red flag to everybody else. Hey, why do you smell good? Why are you so clean?
Yeah, but it'd be good for you because then it keeps your
spirits up, right?
Yeah, keeps your spirits up because if you if you don't feel good, if you don't smell good, like you're gonna have
you feel dirty, you feel nasty.
Yeah, gonna. That's all part of your mental and emotional health as well as being clean and feeling fresh. And I think that's an important thing for you. So
go to Costco and buy a box of baby wipes, right? Of the large wipes. Wipe yourself down with those. Throw them away.
Those leave a residue though. I hate that.
Yeah,
those leave a residue.
They can.
So I would rather have, you can get these just like it's a silver nanotechnology. I don't know what it's called, but it's basically
right.
They're washcloths that have like a silver in them, which makes it antibacterial, won't harbor bacteria. That and a hot water, just rub down what you need to rub down. A little bit of soap here and there. Like one of the things I'm also laughing about is like when I was in Scouts and I'd go to scout camp for a week, the only time I'd get like a little bit clean was jumping in the lake. Right. And then now I watch the show alone and I watch these guys go out there and they don't ever show them, like occasionally they'll show them like, oh, they got to get in the lake to try to clean up, but then it freezes and everything's cold. And they're like, how are they, what's their sanitation at that point? And they showed one just the other day and the guy's like, I'm boiling water. And as soon as it cools enough to touch, I'm going to wash everything that needs to be washed. And he's like reaching under his clothes, rubbing his pits and cleaning off the stinkiest parts and trying to make it better. But he's maintaining a certain level of discomfort and grossness. And there's a psychological damage that creates to your state of being and being able to withstand or continue that. When the pioneers moved out to Utah is a pioneer established state. When they moved out here, on the way out here, they weren't cleaning up very well. And when they got out here, they're like, okay, everybody go bathe, everybody get clean, shave. And it's like, it completely changed their demeanor. They had lost all this weight. They were sad. They were frustrated. They were starving. But as soon as they cleaned themselves, it was like they'd eaten and they were energized again. They're like, okay, now we can go do stuff.
Yeah.
Because they were cleaned.
And water has some really powerful frequencies and some energy that can really help us ground. I think that's a lot about it too, is that once you're clean, you feel so much better about your life. Wow. That's powerful, Scott. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any last minute thoughts before we close out?
Yep. Good.
Well, thank you guys for listening. Thanks for being on the live. We've had several of us, several folks on today making comments. Thanks, Utah Mike, for being on again. We had Whited Outdoors on as well. And thanks for anybody else who I missed. But we wanted to just remind you to go to preppertalkproject.com. That's to register for our event where we're going to talk to you about what we're doing to take our money out of the pockets of these woke companies that hit our guts and are trying to do things with their agenda that we don't like, and switch to American-made, American-owned products that are the good, strong quality with good prices that are worth taking a look at. So that's September 14th at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Go to preppertalkproject.com to be able to register for that. We look forward to seeing you all there, or as many people that want to come and be a part of that. We're really excited to meet you and talk to you about it. But please, you've been listening to Prepper Talk Radio for the ready-minded, where we focus on God, family, and country. And Scott, Shane, and Paris signing off. Have a great week, guys. Take care.
See you next week.